Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more session on Azure Data Engineering. In this particular session, we will discuss about Azure Cosmos DB and Synapse Link. Okay. Now, first, let us understand what is a Synapse Link. Okay. We will understand what is a Synapse Link. We'll also understand Synapse Link for Cosmos DB, and we will create a Cosmos DB service. We'll query the data which is there in Cosmos DB by using Synapse SQL pool. Okay, and we'll also query using Spark pool. These are the things that we are going to basically learn in this particular chapter. Now, first, let us understand why do we need a Synapse link. Many businesses have separate architecture for transactional and analytical processing. Now, the transactional architecture are generally designed to deal with individual transactions very quickly and efficiently. For example, like inserting a single record into a transaction table when a transaction happens. Now, whereas the architecture for analytical processing, which is OLAP, are designed to deal with large amounts of data, including historical information used for reporting, identifying patterns. So now, because these two systems has two different use cases, now the OLTP systems are stored in formats suitable for individual transactions that are stored and optimized for transactional reads and writes. Now, one of your OLTP or online transactional processing could be your Cosmos DB. Okay. Now, when you want to query the data for analytical process, it is better if your data is there in columnar format. Now, a couple of examples of column formatted data types like Parquet, ORC, all this, and there are some other data sets like on Amazon we have something like Redshift, and there are some other data warehouses which supports a columnar data formats. Now, this creates a uh, this creates a need for a process that copies the data from storage used by OLTP architecture that is suitable to store for analytical processing. Now, how this happens basically, now the data in OLTP is there in rows. Now, the data, if it is there in column oriented for OLAP, it is better. Now, how we can change this data? Now, traditionally, companies have created a ETL process to copy this data at regular intervals. Now, these jobs needed to be scheduled to run outside of the business so that don't affect the performance of the transactional system, because that is where our end users do the transactions, right? So the main drawback of this architecture is that the businesses have to create complex ETL jobs to copy large amounts of data. Now, this creates a delay in being able to run processes, and it will delay decision making for any business. Now, there's a problem. Now, how to solve this problem? Now, Microsoft answers to this problem is Synapse Link. Now, what is a Synapse Link? Now, a Synapse Link is a cloud native hybrid transactional and analytic processing capability that will enable businesses to run near real time analytics all their operational data without imparting the performance of the transactional system currently that is used by the applications. Now, Synapse Link is available for Azure Cosmos DB database and SQL Server 2022. Among these Cosmos DB, the database are in general available and you can use them for your production workloads. Now, the Synapse link for SQL Server 2022 is in preview as of now. Okay, and at the moment, and I hope this will generally available very soon. Okay, now let's assume that our transactional system is using our customized DB to serve to the business applications to support the needs of transactional processing application. The data is stored in the transactional store. Now, the data is stored as a resource in the Cosmos DB container so that the data stored is optimized for transactional reads and writes. Now, as we discussed before, increasing businesses are interested in this data to perform business, to perform big data analytics, or you can say a near real time, a traditional approach for using ETL that introduces latency to the data as well as complexity to the data pipelines. Now, what Synapse will do here is that now Synapse in Azure Cosmos DB container, as soon as a transactional data that is coming to a container, it will automatically convert that as a column store, analytical store. Now this column store, we access that from Synapse Analytics with the help of Azure Synapse link, and we can process the data in serverless pool or Spark pool. Okay, that is the use of Azure Synapse. So now basically, because there are OLTP, OLAP, we have to do kind of complex ETL operations. It has becoming extremely difficult for companies to solve this problem. So now Azure here will auto. So here we don't need to create any ETL code. Azure will automatically take care of it. Okay, it will convert this a row form kind of database to a columnar database, which is accessed by Synapse. We can access this data from Synapse to run our big data analytics or machine learning programs, or we can do data exploration, or we can do BI reporting. That is the use of Azure Synapse with Cosmos DB. Okay. Now let us look into the benefits of Azure Synapse link. Now, as I told you that couple of benefits, it is less complex solution. Why it is less complex solution? Because we no need to write a complex ETL code. Okay, it is taken care by Azure. Now it is also called as fully managed service. What is the meaning of fully managed service? It means the underlying compute, CPUs, storage, we no need to worry about that. Azure will take care of it because it is a managed service. And it supports near real time analytics, and the best part is it will not effort it will not effort the transactional system. So the customers who are making some transactions here, it will not have any impact for them. For the operational data, there will be no impact because the data that is used for big data analytics is from this analytics store, not from this transactional store. Okay, now data from this transactional store to the analytical store is copied, data is copied asynchronously. Okay, now we don't need to worry about schema also. It automatically infers the schema. Okay, and Synapse link, basically it will integrate the Cosmos DB and Synapse. Now if we have any data on this container, we can query the data from Azure Synapse. All right, that is a major use. And there are also some of the limitations. Now what are the limitations? Now on on Cosmos DB, we have lot of APIs. One is called as SQL API, Cassandra API, MongoDB API, Gremlin API, and other APIs, right? So as of now, only the SQL and MongoDB API is supported. Others are not supported. Okay, and it only supports it serverless SQL pool to do some analysis to run some queries. Dedicated SQL pool is not supported. Okay. Now it has limited support for existing Cosmos DB containers. We can also do backup and restore analytic store is not possible, and custom partitioning is in preview. These are the some of the limitations of the Synapse link. All right, now let us go ahead and see, create a demo of Synapse Link. Basically, what we will do, we will create a Cosmos DB, we'll create a container, we'll upload some data, and we'll create a Synapse link, and we'll try to analyze the data from the Azure Synapse. That is what the demo that we are going to do. Let me shift to my Azure console for that. I'm there on my Azure console. Let me go to Azure Cosmos DB. Okay, select option create. Select option Cosmos DB for NoSQL. Select option pay as you go. Sorry, we can choose the subscription that we want to use, and I will choose the resource group as demo and the account name demo Synapse link. Okay, this is the account name that I'm going to mention, and this time let me use provision throughput and review and create. Now select this option called as create. The deployment is in progress now. Now our Cosmos DB is created. Let me go to the resource. Now let's go to Data Explorer. Now before going to Data Explorer, before creating a container or a partition key, etc., etc., let us go into this option under settings. You see, under settings, there's an option called as features. Now let us select this option called as features. Now refresh. Previously it used to be under features. Now it got updated. Now let's go to the resource. Now this Synapse link is there under something called as integrations. Now you see under integrations there is something called as Azure Synapse link. Click on that. By default it would be disabled. Now you see there is an option to enable. So let me select this enable. Azure Synapse link is now enabling. So that now after we can create a, a integration between Synapse Analytics. Now whatever data which is there in Cosmos DB, we can access via Synapse. It is still enabling. This will take about a moment for the Azure Synapse link to be enabled. All right, now if we see, we have enabled the Azure Synapse link. Now let me go to the Data Explorer here. Okay, now let me create a new container. Select option new container. Okay, we don't have a database. I will use as, I will give a database name as taxi data. All right, and I'll give the container name as HB. Okay, the partition name, I'll give it as device ID. I'll show you my data in few minutes. Let me give the partition ID as device ID. Okay, let me go ahead and create it. Okay. Oh, we made a small mistake here. Let me, we have to enable the analytics store. Let me delete this. Click OK. It got deleted. Now let me create that again. Database. I'll say taxi data container. I'll give the container name as HB, ID as device ID. Now you see there is something called as analytical store. Now you have to enable this. That is the whole point why we are connecting, making this as an analytical store, right? Now as soon as we make this as analytical store, what happens? Data, whatever is coming to this container, it will automatically convert that into a columnar format. We'll not able to have access to that. Azure internally creates that, and that can be accessed by Synapse. Okay, let me click OK. Now our database and container is created. Let me go here. I can see this taxi data which is created. Okay. Now in that the container is HB, it is created. Okay. Now if we see in the settings, we can see that analytical store time to live is on by default. Okay. It is on. All right. That is what we are looking into, the analytical store. Okay, now let me show you guys my data that I'm going to put here. Okay, now I have a file called as taxi JSON. So this is my JSON document. So I have multiple parameters like driver ID, hired, etc., etc. We have used this device ID as a partition key. Okay, and this is the file that I have. Let me copy one of the JSON document. Let me go to the table here. Let me go to items, a new item. Now replace this, save. Okay, now we have done. Let me add one more item. Okay, let me add one more item. Copy, new item, and save. Now to create the Synapse link to Synapse from Cosmos DB, we have finished everything from the Cosmos DB front. Let us go to the Synapse Analytics and try to access this data because we have created an analytics store. So now this is a transactional store. Automatically, Cosmos will create an analytics store. So that analytical store that created by Cosmos, we will access that from the Synapse Analytics. Let me go to Synapse. Portal.azure.com. Let me go to Azure Synapse Analytics. I already have one. Let us use this. Open. Now to access the analytical store which is there on Cosmos DB, let us create a link first. Let us create a link service. To create a link service, let me go to this option called as manage on Synapse. Now once you go to manage, select this option called as linked service, create a new link service. Now here type in Cosmos. Now as we discussed, the Cosmos DB, the Synapse link only supports two APIs. One is MongoDB API, second one is NoSQL API. Select the NoSQL API, select option continue. Okay, and the link service name I'll give my link. Okay, and the authentication we can choose key type. Okay, it is there in a subscription called as Visual Studio. Okay, Cosmos DB account name is called as Demo Synapse link. Okay, and the database, it is loading the database. Taxi data is the database that we have. Okay, now let us go ahead and create a Synapse link. Select option create here. Okay, it is saying that Synapse link is successfully created. Now the link service is successfully created. Let us go into data here. Under data, you will see something called as linked. Okay, now let us refresh this. You see, you will be able to see Azure Cosmos DB. Inside that, the database that we have created, you'll be able to see that. And inside that, the table which is heartbeat, we are able to see that. Now, right click on this. Select the option like select top 100 rows. There will be a script that is generated here. Now you have to give your identity, that is shared access signature and the secret for us in order to able to access that. Now I'm going to remove this first line here, okay, which is not required. Okay, and I'm going to remove this extension which is not required. Now we need to get the keys. To get the keys, let us go to our Cosmos DB. In the Cosmos DB, let me go here. There is something called as keys. Now here there are read write keys as well as read only keys. So we will not be making any changes on the Synapse, right? So read only keys is more than enough. Let me copy the read only keys here. Okay, once I copy, let me go to the Synapse. Now you see there is secret here. Let us copy that here. Let us copy that secret here. Control V. Okay, now that secret is copied here, and that's all you have to do. Now if you see, by using open row set, we're trying to access the provider Cosmos DB, account is demo synapse link, and our database taxi data and the object HP. Okay, now there are some errors here. Let me remove this additional, right? I think now it is fine. Let me make this also single quote. Okay, now it is fine. Now let me run this query and let's see the results. It is retrieving the results. Now if you see, it is there in a columnar format. I mean, we are able to access the data from the analytics store. Okay, now we have all the data here. Now let us do one thing. Now we have, because we added two JSON documents, we have two rows here. Okay, now let me go to Synapse and add one more JSON document over there. Let me go to my data explorer. Okay, taxi data. Inside that taxi data, there is heartbeat, HB, items. Okay, let me copy two more items now. Let me copy one more item. Let's say new item, replace, paste, save. Okay. Now let me add one more item, delete. Okay, I am copying one more item now. Save. Now I have four items here. Now let's say let us run a query and check. Select start from C and execute the query. See, one of four. So we have four records. So all the four records are there. Now we have uploaded the data. We have updated the couple of more items in a Cosmos DB, right? Now let us see whether as of now we have two rows here. If I run this query again, will we able to see all the four queries or not? All the four rows or not? Let me run this again. Now you see, we are able to see all the four rows here. So basically, when the application is sending the data to the Cosmos DB, as and when there is data that is generated in the transactional store, that will convert into columnar store, and that columnar store we can access from Synapse to do some analytics, or else to run some big data analytics on that columnar store. We can access that with the help of a service on Synapse and Cosmos called as service link. All right, I hope this is clear for you people. And not only this, we can also create a, a Spark notebook from this. Now once I go to this HB, instead of selecting the SQL script, we can select something called as a new notebook. You can write a data frame to the container. You can create a Spark table. You can load streaming data frame from a container. We can do multiple things. Let us select this option called as load a data frame. You see, the code is automatically here. Data frame, read the data from Cosmos with the help of Synapse link service, etc. And it is showing, asking to show the display limit. Okay. Now we don't have a Spark pool here. Let us create a new Apache Spark pool. My pool, memory optimized. All right, review and create. This will create a pool for us so we can access the data from the pool. The pool is deploying now. The pool is created. Let me go back again. Now here, let us say, let us assign the pool. Let me create that again. Right click on this, new notebook. Okay, just now the pool is created. Okay. Right now, let us select the pool. The pool name is my pool. And then let us run this notebook, the cell in this particular notebook. It is connecting to the pool. Now, if you see, the data frame is automatically created. Okay, by using the Spark tools. Now, let us see one thing here. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4 is there, right? Now, let me go to Synapse. All right, let me delete one record. Items. Let me go to items, delete, delete. Okay. Now let me run this again and let's see whether we'll get 4 or 3 items. Now we might get 4, but if you wait for a minute or two, so you see we got 4 items. Let us wait for a moment here. Let's run this again. Still got 4. So we have 5 votes. We have only 3. Okay. Let us wait for one more minute. You see now, I am able to see only 3 records. Okay. So that's how. And if you see here, format Cosmos OLAP. So basically it is saying that it is accessing the data from the OLAP store, not from the OLTP. Okay. Similar. Okay. Now let us see couple of more simple options in Synapse. Let me see. Let us see all the options. Now if you look here, we have something called as replicate data globally. Okay. Now if I select this, okay, so configure regions, write region rights are disabled, let us enable it. Okay. Now when you add a region to your account, you'll be billed additional RUs to store the copy to the region. Okay. Now let's say if I want to replicate, now my Cosmos DB is there here in West US. Now if I want to replicate to UAE North, all that you need to do is that just enable it. So now I have Cosmos DB here as well as here. Now let's say I want to my application users are there in India. I want a Cosmos DB to be replicated to India region as well. You need to do, if it is set West India, select West India and select this. Just one click and your Cosmos DB will be replicated multiple locations. Okay, that is how you can replicate the Cosmos DB. You see now the regions, it is there in East to West, UAE, Central India, and North India. And all the regions are read enabled and write enabled. Okay, it's very, very easy to replicate data by using Cosmos DB. Okay, now I want to disable the replication, disabling and deleting. Now I have Cosmos DB only in my region, which is there in East West US. Now, if we hover to this, you can see what region is that. It is there in West US. And default consistency. There are basically 5 default consistencies. One is strong, bound stainless, session, consistent prefix, and eventual. So basically, it provides write latencies. Now, what is a session? It provides write latencies, availability, and read throughput comparable to that of eventual consistency, but also provides a consistency guarantee that suits the need of application written to operate in the context of a user. Okay, so basically this consistency defines how the data is copied from one region to another region, whether it is following the same sequence or it is not following the same sequence, and how the data is copied from one region to another region. That is what a consistency will define. And we have another option called as backup and restore. So if you want to backup and restore Cosmos DB, you have this option and you have a policy here. Uh, you can backup periodically and you can define the interval. Now, how long interval, how often would you like to backups to be performed? And how long would you like your backups to be saved? Okay, you can give 8 to 270 hours or days. Okay, number of copies to retain, and when you do a backup, whether it has to store in a geo redundant or it should be local redundant. Okay, you can select these options. And we already discussed about the keys: primary key, secondary key. You have again read keys and read write keys, as well as read only keys. Okay, and integrations, you can integrate Cosmos DB to Power BI to visualize the data. We know that we can integrate with Azure Synapse Link, and we can also integrate with the Azure function. Okay, now let us say we want to scale Cosmos DB. in the containers, there's an option called as scale. You can choose the scale function. It will take you through this data explorer again. Here you can go ahead and configure and we can scale. And there is something called as settings here. Now if you go under settings, you see we are there under settings. Again, we can change the any of the options that you want. Okay. If you want to change the default settings, we can go ahead and do that. And you have script explorer, query explorer, and document explorer. I recommend you guys to go ahead and explore those three options. And we can also configure alerts. Let's say I want to create a rule, like if there is data incoming or any type of activity that is happening, I want to configure a rule. And we can go ahead and use this feature called as alerts, and then we can configure alerts. All right, so those are the some of the important things that we need to know about Cosmos DB, and I strongly recommend you guys to do hands-on exercise so that it'll be very clear for you how to configure a link between Cosmos DB and Synapse, as well as how to create Cosmos DB database, how to create containers, and how to query the data in the Cosmos DB. Thank you very much, guys. See you guys in the next session.